Do Rangers and Celtic have a positive or negative impact on other clubs in the Premiership and other smaller clubs within the Scottish football pyramid? I've done a lot of videos before where I ask rival fans about their biggest rivals' teams. I've done it with Celtic and Rangers, I've done it with Liverpool and Everton, Tottenham and Arsenal. I did it with England during the World Cup with Scottish fans on the street, and I think it was in one of those videos, and I do apologise, I've lost the comment, but somebody, I believe, commented, why don't you ask fans of other teams about Celtic and Rangers? So over the past couple of weeks, I've asked Aberdeen fans at a game, I've asked Hibs fans at games, I've asked Killie fans at games as well, what their thoughts are on a few Rangers and Celtic related questions. I then did a poll on Twitter to ask you guys, my followers, what you think about the positive and negative impacts that Celtic and Rangers have on the overall football pyramid here in Scotland. Obviously, they are two huge clubs known the world over, but they're so successful, does it just stop other teams from being able to have success of their own? I will run you through all the Twitter answers very, very soon. I'll give you my opinion on whether I think Rangers and Celtic should be in the Lowland League. Obviously, we've had the ticket controversy with St Johnstone this week as well. But firstly, before you hear more from me, which I'm sure you don't want to, here are the fans of teams like Hibs, Aberdeen, Kilmarnock, and their thoughts on some Old Firm related questions. You're obviously a Hibs fan.
Yeah.
We're inside Easter Road right now.
Yeah.
Would you say that Celtic and Rangers have a positive or negative impact on clubs like Hibs?
If you're talking about it being European football, so if Celtic Rangers do well in Europe, you always get the more European places. But you're also talking about Celtic buying the players off us.
Yeah.
And we can league. Game to the start, so
Yeah. Second half's just begun here. Yeah.
it's a 50-50 coin.
Yeah.
It's like, it's good for the league, but there's also quite a negative for the league as well.
Yeah, I suppose like they've obviously won every single league in the past like 40 years or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think teams like yourselves, teams like Hearts, teams like Aberdeen have to do in order to win a league title against these two? Can it happen in the next 10 years, 20 years?
Unless some severe money goes in the football leagues, like a better TV revenue, like you do in England, you get like billions of money. But right now, I don't see that happening for another 40 years, maybe at a push.
Yeah. And as a Hibs fan, I guess it might be quite an obvious answer.
Yeah.
Do you lean towards Celtic or Rangers? Like when either one of them went, just neither for you?
I treat them both the same because they are like the same team. Well, not the same team, but like the same fan group. So it's like I totally hate against whatsoever. Because
I know a lot of non-Old Firm fans will still support or like the other one of the other two, but for you it's just Hibs.
It's Hibs through and through, mate.
I like to hear it. Yeah. And so final question for you then, as I know we're watching the game right now. Do you think any of the current players in the Scottish Premiership outside of Celtic or Rangers would get into the Celtic or Rangers team? Who if any?
Nisbet. I think Nisbet's quite a good strong player.
Right, yep.
Brian Porteous is quite good. Ken McGuinness, and then maybe a couple of years few time if he's not injury prone.
Anyone from maybe Aberdeen, Killie, Hearts, anyone like that, do you think?
Xander Clark maybe? I really rate Xander Clark as a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think he's a good keeper as well.
Come on! Okay.
Perfect, mate. Thank you so much for your answers. As I can see, you're obviously an Aberdeen fan. Out of any of the teams within the Premiership currently that aren't Celtic or Rangers, do you think any players would get into the Celtic or Rangers squads?
Be a struggle.
Any from Aberdeen maybe?
Shinnie, McCrory.
Yeah, Majowski maybe?
Maybe.
Good goal scorer, isn't he? And then, so conversely, being an Aberdeen fan, is there any players that you would take from Rangers or Celtic for your squad right now?
Not a chance.
Not a chance,
Not
just keep your players. And is there a team that you would lean towards more, or is it just Aberdeen for you?
Purely Aberdeen for me.
So we're obviously inside Hampden Park today with Aberdeen playing Rangers. Would you say that Aberdeen have a bigger rivalry against Rangers or Celtic?
Rangers, aye.
What does that stem from?
80s.
The 80s, yeah. Your successful sort of era, and there was a few tackles, right, that I've heard about?
You know, before that even, but the semi.
Okay. And so do you think that overall Celtic and Rangers have a positive impact on clubs like yours? No. And what about the wider Scottish football pyramid as well?
No.
Not at all? You think they're a bit more self-serving?
We deserve to have an opportunity to show other clubs in like England like what Aberdeen's about, what our history is about, and stuff like that.
Do you think the Celtic and Rangers get a bit too much coverage then?
I feel like they get too much limelight.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Well, I mean I could go further.
Okay, I bet.
So much.
I bet.
Go on.
And so,
The choice of referee today is a good one point today,
how come? What?
because his affiliations with Rangers.
Ah, okay, right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a few questionable refereeing decisions recently for Celtic and Rangers, I think.
well, that's
And so just moving it on a little bit from sort of the historical aspect, in this current season now, do you think there's any players in teams that aren't Celtic or Rangers that would get in the Celtic or Rangers team within Scotland? So any Killie players, Hearts players,
Let's
Hibs?
say an Aberdeen player, Duke.
Duke, you reckon? Majowski maybe?
Miovski recently, not so much, but
Any others around the Premiership?
I think I've heard that Devlin boy, he's quite decent.
Yeah? What, at Hearts?
Yeah.
Yeah? Maybe Porteous, he's been linked with Rangers, do you think
I
he's
don't like
good enough?
Porteous, I don't
no,
rate
I
him.
don't rate him enough to go to the Old Firm. Maybe a championship in England.
Yeah. Fair enough. And final question then, is there any players that you would like to see for Aberdeen who currently play for Celtic or for Rangers?
Not off the top of my head, no.
I don't know. I have
No,
idea.
just stick to your Aberdeen boys, yeah?
Yeah.
You're the first, and I think maybe only Killie fans I've spoken to for this video. What kind of impact do you think the two Old Firm teams have on your club?
I don't think they have a massive impact. Obviously there's been a bit of money when match days like this when they fill the stand, but at the same time we did cut their allocation and it hasn't affected us that
Yeah.
much.
And so, obviously there's been a bit of controversy with St Johnstone and their ticketing system with Rangers over the last few weeks or whatever. What are your thoughts on that, and do you think clubs should open up 2 free stands for the two Old Firm?
I think it's true with the St Johnstone fans. I feel as though it's their club, it's their decision. It's true when Stevie Clark was here. He gave this back to Kilmarnock, obviously gave it one stand. It's true what the St Johnstone fans are doing, but I can see in a financial aspect why St Johnstone chairman, was it chairman?
Yeah, he
The
did a
chair-
message
he
today,
was,
yeah.
I can see with his point, but you can also see the fans' point. But it's true, if you've got empty stands, they're there to be filled and money's
Exactly.
to be made, you know what I mean? And I think it goes a 50-50 between clubs, so
Yep.
it's just one of the
I don't know what the perfect answer is to that,
no,
that
it's
question, really.
it's
Yeah,
a hard
tough
one. You're looking for a financial point, and if it can bring money in for a club of a lower level, then by all means do it. But you can understand why the fans are upset because they
course.
want it as their club, and it kind of becomes a Rangers home atmosphere, and it's not really fair on the St Johnstone fans.
And do you think Rangers and Celtic help teams in the lower league as well? Do you say their impact in Scottish football in general helps League 2 teams, Lowland League
Financially,
teams?
yes.
It is true, like you say about the kind of the Welsh leagues and all that. Scottish football is attracted with the Old Firm, Rangers and Celtic, but if you sit and look at it, there's also Hibs and Hearts. They're
Yeah.
a massive derby. They carry a major impact
Even
in Scottish
Aberdeen have got
football.
a good travelling support as well, and they've
Yeah.
been a good aspect to
Of course.
Obviously with yourself, I feel as though you cover a lot of Scottish football from the lower level to the top of the division. I always say it's easy to support a winning team,
Yeah,
so the
yeah.
real teams have got to get their support. And
course.
I feel as though more local people should support their local teams rather than follow the big stages, but you understand why they do it.
And so, less controversial question then, do you think any players currently in Scotland in the Premiership, even outside the Premiership, would get into the Celtic or Rangers squad
You said
that aren't in the Celtic or Rangers squad currently?
there is one person that you said Barry Mackay. You could put him back in the mix, and I don't understand why he's not got a call up for the Scotland squad.
Yeah.
I still don't understand that, but it will come soon.
Nesbitt's on good form, Shankland,
I
yep,
feel-
you're
I
right.
feel as though-
Anyone here at Killie?
Danny Armstrong.
Armstrong,
100% Danny
yeah.
Armstrong. I feel as though the boys showed his ability today. Maybe a bit too much, maybe a bit fiery, but
Yeah.
I feel as though the boys got a long way to go.
Whenever I do these videos, you always get some really, really interesting answers. So a massive thank you to the football fans who came on and answered my questions. I know when I approach people and say, I want to ask you questions about the Old Firm clubs, I have to explain why I'm doing it. And yeah, a massive thank you to everyone who gave me their opinions. A few takeaways. I've made a couple of notes here on the fan section that I've just showed you, and then we're going to jump into the Twitter section too, and have a look at the poll and have a look at some of the replies. It was really popping off yesterday, so I'm sure we got some good replies in there. The Hibs fan I spoke to, I mentioned that obviously every single league title for the last 40 or so years has been won by Rangers or Celtic. What will it take to change that? Again, I want to hear your comments as well, so drop them in the comment section below. What would it take to change that? He's obviously saying like a big influx of TV money, which, yeah, is probably correct. Or I've always thought that it probably wouldn't be too hard for like a really big rich billionaire to come in, buy Hibs, Hearts or Aberdeen and actually make them better than Celtic or Rangers. In the grand scheme of football, I don't think Celtic and Rangers are that amazing. We've seen that this season in the Champions League. Yes, domestically, obviously, they're so dominant. So I think actually for someone to come in and invest in a club, it wouldn't take a lot to kind of get at least closer to Celtic and Rangers, in my opinion. But the Hibs fan there, he did think that it would be another 40 years potentially for another team to win it, which would mean we're up to 80 years of no other team winning it. Could we go a century without another team winning the league here in Scotland that isn't Celtic or Rangers? Pfft, that'd be absolutely crazy, wouldn't it? And then what did I ask later on? So, yeah, I asked a few of the fans if they had a preference between Celtic or Rangers. I like that the guys that I spoke to in this video would just die hard for their own club. I reckon, though, if I were to ask fans of smaller clubs, League 2 teams, League 1 teams, I'd get some very different answers to that question. I obviously watch a lot of lower league football in Scotland, from Bucky Thistle up in the north all the way down to Annan in the south, and the east and the west as well. And whenever I go to these clubs, the little lads running around at the games will either have Celtic trackies on, Rangers tops, Celtic tops, Rangers trackies. They've always got a Celtic or Rangers team they support, as well as their local team as well. Which players in Scotland would make it into the Celtic and Rangers team? We got some Nisbets in there, some Dukes, Shankland, Mackay, Armstrong. Again, would like to hear your comments below. I think we've seen Nisbet and Shankland linked to Rangers this morning. Nisbet's linked to Celtic as well, I think the last week or two. I think there's some good players in Scotland. Obviously, Xander Clark was mentioned. When Xander Clark was at St Johnstone, I thought it'd always be a kind of good keeper for Rangers to maybe get in with the outgoing sort of McGregor, but obviously McGregor's ended up staying now. So, yeah, there's some good players outside of the old firm clubs. I wonder how many of them would be able to make the step up to those two. Moving on to the last bit that I'm going to speak about in this section before the Twitter section, and that is the allocation of tickets for Rangers and Celtic fans at away games. The two Killie fans I spoke to said they cut their allocation for the old firm clubs, and it didn't really affect the club too much. So I wonder how much of an impact it really has, but then you can obviously see the other side of it. So again, I was interviewed for a piece about St Johnstone in a newspaper and online recently, and I totally understand where the fans are coming from. I think it's more the ticket pricing as well that they're upset with, but I do understand why home fans don't want to see 3 stands taken up by Celtic and Rangers. I've seen it this season at like Livy, for example, where we saw Celtic play there and Rangers actually. And not only are they in 3 stands, but also part of the home stand as well. Fans from the 2 big clubs will also pick up tickets for the home end as well. It happened at Killie the other night as well. There was 3 Rangers fans literally sitting in front of me, and I was in the Killie main stand there. So yeah, it does happen, and I can understand it from a club's perspective as well. They want to make revenue. Where is the line? Do you come down on the line of the fans completely and say, no, we're only having 1 away stand? Or do you come down on the line of some of the clubs and say they want all the revenue and give them 3 away stands? I don't know what the right answer would be. Probably going to have to meet somewhere in the middle, but what that would look like, I am just unsure. It's a tough one to get your head around, but it's sort of the blessing and the curse of the old firm, isn't it? You've got these 2 huge teams here in Scotland, and that sometimes raises issues like these ticketing issues that we're having currently. So moving on to the Twitter section right now, we are going to jump into Twitter. So as you can see online on screen, I did my poll. Do Celtic and Rangers have a positive impact on smaller clubs in Scotland? Over 50% of the people said no, and I reckon that a lot of my followers are Celtic and Rangers fans anyway, so that probably would skew it in a more positive way for them. So I think you get more yeses than reality would say. So I actually think that the no could even be bigger, if you know what I mean. But let's just go with the results. 35%, only a third, just over a third of all the people who voted in this, 5,168 votes, said yes, they do. Over half said no, and then the few said don't know. And I did ask a few questions here as well. So if you support a different club in Scotland, I want to know your thoughts on these questions here. Do the B teams help other Lowland League clubs? Does money filter down a pyramid from the 2 main men's teams? Are they too dominant, and will anyone else ever win the league? Let's have a look at some of the answers. The only people that are going to say yes are the old firm fans. Neither can see past their 11-year rivalry, okay? Only in a financial sense, and even then it's massively overblown. In every other aspect, no, there is zero positive impact. I would say no, we don't turn down their gate money, do we? Just horrendous how in towns like mine, Livy, the percentage of full-time Livy supporters versus old firm is very poor. Again, I've seen that. You go to Livingston, it's not too far from Glasgow, it's closer to Edinburgh, but the vast majority of people there will support Celtic and Rangers, much like they do all up and down the country, really. Here we go. Andy Boy has said, they like to think they do, but they don't have a positive impact, that is. They seem to think that clubs can't survive without them, but there are 30 clubs who don't play them at all who survive without them. I wonder how much of the money Celtic and Rangers make filters down to teams in the Championship League 1, League 2. Despite what the fans will tell you, this is Stephen here, no is the answer. The league without them would be better, as more competitive, and as shown by St Mirren this season, restricting the tickets to them, the average attendance isn't any lower and will only increase. And here we go. So look, there's some really negative ones and some positive ones as well, or some going one way and then the other. Here Adrian has said, without the Glasgow 2, the product would not be as attractive to broadcasters. If B teams want a league, create one for that purpose. The SPFL had made it almost impossible for small clubs to get out of the Lowland League before they admitted reserves. Yes, I do understand what he's saying about the B team league. I am quite a fan of having the B teams in the Lowland League. I've spoken about this before. I think that it brings way more eyeballs to the Lowland League. You get more bums on seats, or feet in terraces, I guess you could say, at smaller clubs when Celtic and Rangers go and play there. One example I give quite frequently is Spartans. I went to see them play against Rangers B. When Rangers B first came into the Lowland League, it was when Leon King was still playing for them before he'd gone up to be in the first team. And the chairman was telling me that most games they might get 100, 150 people. When Rangers came, it was more like 400 or 500. So yeah, they're not going to play them every week, but when they do, it adds a bit of excitement, I guess, that they wouldn't usually have. And I bet they get a lot more people on the Lowland League website checking the scores and the tables just because Celtic and Rangers are in there. So I do think it has a positive impact in that sense. Let me move into the quote tweet section. Ooh, fingers crossed they're not too bad. Aidan Griffiths, is this even a question? One positive, they bring money. Other than that, you take a 2-0 loss against one of them and it's a good result. It's pathetic. They take any player they see in the league with a little bit of quality for their team and they get them as cheap as chips. Yeah, okay, I guess they do. They are able to pick up players. They're obviously always in Europe. They've got way more money than any other clubs in Scotland. And when someone does play well for a smaller club, I guess they can get picked up. You've seen that with Ryan Jack and Scott Wright, 2 good players for Aberdeen. Rangers picked them up, I guess, fairly cheaply for how they're performing, or how they have performed. Ryan Jack scored some big goals for Rangers. I think they both scored in the Cup final last season, didn't they? We rant. Celtic and Rangers are the worst thing for Scottish football. Large groups of supporters they have don't even stay in Glasgow. They used to take players from teams like Hibs, Hearts, Dundee United, etc. and leave them in the mud. They always get shocking decisions in favour. Yeah, I think some of the refereeing decisions, I don't think the referees consciously make decisions for Celtic and Rangers, but maybe subconsciously when even the away games feel like a home game for their old firm teams. I guess it might impact their decision making. In regards to finances, no, not overall. Consider things like Rangers dying and the Phantom Club starting in Old Division 3 and how losing one of the old firm never affected the non-old firm. Similarly, non-old firm teams deciding to reduce away allocation. So look, as you can see from the Twitter section there is loads of positive, negative answers. Go and check out my Twitter, give me a follow while you're there and have a look through some of the answers. I know there was a big debate about Scotland becoming like Wales if Celtic and Rangers were to play in England. Some really, really interesting answers and conversations in there, so go and check it out. I'm a massive fan of Scottish football and I just want to see Scottish teams do well from the very, very bottom to the very, very top. I would love to see Celtic and Rangers back in the Champions League regularly and get into knockout stage football. Of course I would. I would also like to see Hibs and Hearts and Aberdeen up in the Champions League potentially, or even the Europa League, and teams like Motherwell, Dundee United, Dundee. I know they both Dundee clubs have great European heritage. Yeah, I'd like to see all the clubs getting into Europe who have that stature and have that ability to get up there in the Premiership, and I'd like to see smaller teams be able to have a future as well. I look at teams like Clyde, for instance, and the fact that they don't have a stadium of their own. When will they get a stadium? I just don't see the money in Scottish football like there is obviously in England. I know the Premier League has too much money now. Look at Chelsea, it's becoming a joke. They sign a player for 50 million almost every day. And I don't want Scotland to become that, but I don't want it to remain down here. I think there needs to be a balance in there somewhere. But do Rangers and Celtic positively affect all the smaller clubs in the league? I guess there is some form of trickle down with European money and with their ability to put B teams in the Lowland League. The B teams, they have to pay to be in the Lowland League, as do Hearts as well. Obviously, they're in there too. But yeah, I just want to see them all do well. I've covered them a lot lately. I don't think I have. I'm just looking at my schedule just over there off camera. I don't think I have any Celtic or Rangers games coming up. As much as they do the good numbers, obviously, it is quite intense covering them all the time, and obviously the conversations that go around with it. As you've seen from Twitter, it's so polarising one side or the other. So I've not got a Celtic or Rangers game planned in for the next week or two, but I have got some exciting stuff planned. I'm off to a brand new country, a country I've never even been to before, next week, as well as some really, really cool Scottish Cup games as well over the weekend. So yeah, please do hit that like button. Please do put your comments in the comment section below. I'm sure there's going to be some interesting ones in there, that's for sure. Please do also subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.